So the bench is right here, right where the green garbage can at. This is the bench she was sitting on, right there.
Her name was Rekia Boyd. Martinez Sutton is her older brother. 22-year-old Rekia and a large crowd have been here in Chicago's Douglas Park, celebrating a Wall March night in 2012. At around midnight, an off-duty police officer named Dante Servin called 911 from his home across the street to complain about the noise.
This is the house, the light brown one.
At around 1 a.m., Rekia and her friends walked along this sidewalk.
So they walked down this sidewalk. They was confronted right here in an alley by the police officer.
By this time, Servin had left his home and drove his car up the alley. What happened next is contested. What we do know is that words were exchanged. And moments later, the off-duty officer fired 5 shots. One of those bullets struck Rekia in the head. She was unarmed.
It's about right here. It was like, right here, laying down, face down, in the alley.
Do you know, is that Dante Servin's car right there?
That's the same car he was in, black Mercedes-Benz. Same car he was in when it happened. Only difference is he got tinted windows now. That's it. So the west side of Chicago came up with this. It was like wanted posters, basically. Killed by Officer Dante Servin. I am Rekia Boyd. Who's next? That's who's next really ring a bell, because after Rekia, we had so many more.
Since 2012, Martinez has returned to this alley to say his sister's name. In the US, black women are being killed by police at a rate of 1 a month. 1 in 4 are unarmed. Their stories have often gone untold.
They don't talk about women that much when they get killed by the police. They barely talk about women. Why is that? It's crazy because you see that even in death. Women play the second role. Peace, bro. How you feeling?
Good, man. It's good to see you.
Man, it's love.
How you been, man? I've been all right, yo. How you been?
Been all right, man.
I believe that we will win. I believe that we will win. I believe that we will win. I believe that we will win.
Since Rekia Boyd's death, her name has become a rallying cry for Chicago's movement for Black lives.
Rekia Boyd was a young black woman who was killed by the police. And we gon' fight all day and night until she rests in peace. What side are you on, my people? What side are you on? What side are you on, my people? What side are you on?
And I see Martinez in the space. About to Say Her Name campaign, which started right after the non-conviction of Dante Servin for killing Rekia Boyd in 2012. We started it last year. Came a campaign after that because we had to understand that black women, black, trans, cis, and black femmes are killed at a rate that nobody realizes. And that even though Black Lives Matter was created by 3 black queer women, that our names are not consistently uplifted.
People don't care about black women. They just don't. We're in the way in the case of Rekia Boyd. We're angry black women in the we're just too angry and too black and too womanly in the case of Sandra Bland. Like, we're either too X or we're invisible.
Paige May is a teacher and organizer with a group called Asata's Daughters.
At best, we're taken for granted. At worst, we're abused, right? And we see the manifestation of that on the mainstream in the erasure of our deaths, of our suffering, and of our resistance.
These are statements, and as you say, the victim's name is Detective Dante Servin.
For 4 years, Martinez has fought to hold Officer Servin accountable for Rekia's death. When he was questioned, Servin told investigators that Rekia's friend pointed a gun at him and that he fired in self-defense.
Servin said he winced and tugged as he was bracing for impact and being shot. He said, don't, police. Then he pulled his Glock from his holster on his right hip with his right hand and shot across his left shoulder 4 to 5 times out the driver's window. The result of that, Rekia got shot in the head, Antonio got shot in the hand.
And I said, oh my God. And I put my hand like this. That's how I got shot. He tried to, basically, I think he tried to shoot me in my face.
Rekia's friend, Antonio Cross, said he actually had a cell phone in his hand.
His thumb nearly blown off.
The gun that Servin says he saw was never recovered.
How could this be justified? You took my sister away from me.
In April last year, Servin was acquitted of involuntary manslaughter charges.
Earlier today, Judge Dennis Porter cleared Servin.
There is a finding of not guilty on all counts.
Judge Dennis Porter ruled that Servin was tried for the wrong crime. He suggested that a murder charge would have been more appropriate.
It sparked outrage in court and outside as Servin left.
Antonio Cross is a would-be cop killer.
We're gonna make sure that y'all won't kill us off the street, then help us get killers off the street, including police officers. This changed my whole life. My whole life, the whole direction of, I felt like Rekia was my child, like, okay, I got one more to send off, and I'm good, I can continue to live my life. She never got a chance to fully do what she wanted to do.
We came back to the place where Rekia was killed to see if Officer Servin would speak to us. I know he has guns, I know he has surveillance. I'm not sure even if he's going to open the door, and if he does, what might happen.
Good morning. Hi.
We arrived just as Servin's family was leaving the house.
You were here with the deceased brother, right?
That's correct,
Yesterday.
yeah.
You know what, our family's going through a lot.
I understand.
Then unexpectedly,
How are you?
Officer Servin appeared in the backyard.
I'm Femi OK from Fort Lines.
Can you please shut off the camera?
What followed was a 2-hour conversation, which Servin didn't want us to film.
He says he knows Antonio Cross had a gun. Dante says it doesn't matter if it was a cell phone or if it was a gun, if it was pointed at him, and he believed in that moment that he was being threatened and being threatened by a gun. That was all that was important.
Each time he leaves his home, Officer Servin drives past this spot on the sidewalk. It's where he says he saved his life while taking Rekia's in the process. Servin told us that to this day, he has nightmares about what happened. Months after Dante Servin's trial ended, an explosive video was released to the public. It showed a Chicago police officer shooting 17-year-old LaQuan McDonald 16 times.
We find out that there's 400 days of cover-up by huge decision makers in our government, right, in our city's government. With his murder, because it indicted not just a cop. It was the whole city, right? And so people, I think, were able to understand that this isn't just about bad apples. There's a whole system, a whole institution, a whole power structure set up to enforce these things, to make them inevitable. Right?
The shooting led to widespread protests and the eventual removal of Chicago's police chief and the state's attorney.
If you, as people in positions of power, police officers, state's attorneys, mayors, all of these people who hold positions of power, if you use that power with blatant disregard and disrespect for Black life, you will be held accountable. You will lose your job. You will lose your funding. Absolutely, right? And that is, I believe that Black lives matter when we make them matter. And that is an assertion of making Black lives matter.
While the city reeled from this scandal, police shot and killed a Black woman in the doorway of her home. Betty Jones was 55 years old, a mother of 5 and a grandmother of 9.
There in the first chair by the pew. And Black Panthers was over here across to this side. The whole church was filled. People were standing up.
Early on the morning of December 26th, Betty opened the door for police, who were responding to a domestic dispute in the apartment above. Moments later, she was dead.
The one right on Cicero and Erie, where she was murdered.
She was like the glue that kept everybody together, you know. Very strong, opinionated woman, loving, caring, outspoken, bubbly personality. All that to be truly be missed.
Smokey Robinson and the sister told me as kids, Smokey Robinson had a song, "You really got a hold on me, you really got," and that's the song that she used to dance with them as kids and hug them.
My mama, like, she loved to dance. She could dance to any song, and she always grabbed us to dance with her to any song.
How did she dance?
She loved to step.
She a stepper.
Yep. That was her favorite, stepping.
Yeah, she got down on the dance floor.
Yeah, she loved to dance. That's all I can say.
Right.
Any song come on, she was on the floor.
We always in the kitchen, listening to music and playing cards and eating dinner. This is really emotional. Oh my gosh. Oh, Jesus.
It was 4:30 on the morning after Christmas when Betty opened this door for police. Soon after, officers encountered her upstairs neighbor, Quintonio Legria.
Tonio Legria allegedly was coming down these steps. What they say, he had a baseball bat, a Louisville Slugger, a Louisville Slugger.
Officer Robert Riamos said the 19-year-old swung the baseball bat at his head, so he fired his gun, fatally hitting Legria with 6 bullets, 4 of them in his back. 1 bullet hit Betty Jones.
Betty gets shot in the chest. It goes straight through her.
Betty was rushed to the hospital, where she was pronounced dead at 4:51 a.m.
This is the threshold to Betty Jones's apartment. She's found, a good 5 feet into her apartment. She never should have been placed at risk of any injury, let alone death, when she's in her apartment and the officer knows she's there.
Larry Rogers is representing the family in a lawsuit against the city.
You see here evidence of bullets striking the left side of the doorway. There is evidence of a bullet striking this rear wall, and then there's evidence of a bullet striking the end of this door as well. So it's like a spray of bullets across the doorway. It's akin to a drive-by, personally. I mean, if he didn't have a badge on, he didn't have a uniform, we'd be calling this a drive-by on the home on West Erie Street. And there's no different if you have an unjustifiable and reckless shooting by a policeman. This is where they're found, and here are the shell casings. But what's important here is when you have a cluster of shell casings, all of which are located at, or even in some instances beyond, the public sidewalk, some 20+ feet away from the victims. How can you reasonably be in fear of your life with someone that far away?
Officer Riamo said he shot Quintonio in self-defense and killed Betty Jones by accident.
So in the lawsuit, what is his culpability? He says it was an accident.
If you're a truck driver driving a truck and you have an accident and accidentally kill someone, you should be held accountable at a minimum through termination, if not charges. And police officers are no different. In fact, I would suggest they should be held to a higher standard because we've entrusted them with badges, we've entrusted them with weapons, and we've entrusted them with authority. So when that leads to the death of someone and they call it an accident, that's an indication that they don't deserve that authority.
No charges have been filed against Officer Riamo. He's back patrolling the streets.
And I remember, like 2 weeks before my mom passed, I had a dream. It was like a nightmare. And I told her, I was like, Mom, I just had a bad dream. And she was like, well, what's the dream about? And I was like, I had a dream that all us was together and you wasn't there. And she said, well, where I was at then, Tanya. I was like, I don't know where you was at. I said, but you wasn't there. I'm like, everybody was here but you. And 2 weeks later after that, my mom got killed. And all us was together but her.
The family of Betty Jones continues to look for answers after their mother's killing, much like Rekia's brother has done for 4 years.
They just killed that woman for no reason. Just like they killed Rekia for no reason. She didn't pose a threat. Rekia didn't pose a threat. It don't matter how old you are, if you pose a threat or not. Like, they would shoot first and ask questions later, but how can you ask questions to the dead? Lead no witnesses. Lead no witnesses. And we felt like once he got off, that wasn't right. Well, we got to go for his job then. So we started going to the police board meetings every month and just raising awareness, letting them know this ain't right.
Last year, the police chief recommended that Officer Servin be fired, but Servin retired instead.
After Dante Servin quit the CPD, maintaining his ability to earn his pension, a group of organizers did a direct action at his house. And his response was to come out with the largest gun that I have ever seen and to point it at us, a group of unarmed Black women, and to stand there until, I don't know, he felt he had made his point and then he walked in.
Officer Servin told us that he did come outside with a rifle that day. He said he was protecting his family and denied pointing the gun at protesters. It had been weeks since we met Servin outside his home.
That's Dante Servin. He's just parking up.
He changed his mind and said he was ready to talk to us on camera.
Hi. Afternoon. Nice to see you again.
Hey, how are you?
All right, thanks.
Feels weird. Feels really weird.
Why? Why does it feel weird?
It's a camera.
Servin arranged to meet us here at the Fraternal Order of Police. He invited his friend, retired Officer Brian Warner, to join us.
Okay.
Servin wanted to talk about his 24 years on the force and explain what it takes to become an effective cop.
Policemen have a hunter mentality in that you have to be out there, you have to be the predator. You have to hunt crime.
Right.
You have to hunt the criminal. Sure. You have to look for the crime. You have to think like a predator to catch the predators. To be a good policeman, you have to think like them.
As we began the interview, Dante told us he had changed his mind again.
To now?
Something developed about 2 weeks ago.
Right.
And I was still considering giving the interview.
Yeah.
And then I got something in the mail yesterday.
What was that?
I'd rather not say. So I'll listen and I'll chat, but I'm not giving an interview, a formal documentary interview.
Right.
And this was as of yesterday.
So you're afraid to talk to us today?
No, I'm not afraid. I just can't.
You've been told you can't?
I cannot.
Brian Warner has supported Dante since the beginning of his case.
That's it.
How this whole scenario with Dante, how that's impacted him, you know him.
When you take a life in the line of duty, it affects you emotionally, it affects you physically, it affects you spiritually. And then when people are judging you before they even know facts, that compounds it and makes it even more difficult. And Dante's situation, it's what in the media they call a heater case or a high-profile case because of the predicament and the time it happened. And there was people running for political office, and they used it as a stepping stone or used it as a tool for their political gain. A lot of news outlets and a lot of people with an agenda will tell you police are out there shooting unarmed black men at this unacceptable rate. They're shooting criminals. They're shooting people involved in crimes. They're shooting offenders, hurting other people. They're not just out there shooting aimlessly. There are situations when that does occur, when somebody's hit, like Dante said. This is a war on crime. It's a war on drugs. In war, there are casualties. Again, you're just dividing the community and the police.
While we spoke with Brian, Officer Servin continued to interject. At times, he spoke straight to the camera.
They wanted a scapegoat. They made me the scapegoat. Rahm Emanuel, the mayor, cut this guy's head, cut this guy's head, cut this guy's head. Let's move on. That's not the way it works, Mayor. That's not the way it works, Mr. Rahm Emanuel. The officers are not going to support you because you made an example out of me unfairly. I was a victim, and they made me the offender, just to appease the protesters. Well, I'll talk to you in a year. I can't talk anymore.
Right.
I just said whatever I had to say. I couldn't contain myself any further.
Dante, thank you.
I'll be outside. I'll be outside.
At this point, Servin left the room.
You want any sodas, Dante?
I know. I'm just going to catch some air.
Hello, I'm okay from Al Jazeera. Oh!
On our way out of the interview, we ran into Dean Angelo, the union president.
I just spoke to Dante Servin. He said a lot. What do you make of his story, his case?
He got screwed. They should never have done that to that kid. Never. He should never have been on trial. It's a shame.
Communities in Chicago right now, they feel that there's one law for police, one law for the rest of the citizens, and police aren't punished in any way.
No. If, in fact, the situation warrants criminal allegations, we've had policemen go to jail. Guy I worked with in jail for the rest of his life. So we have that. We have people that are fired and people that have been in jail. So that has happened in the past, and it'll happen in the future. They want everyone's head on a pike ball. I mean, that can't happen.
From the public's point of view, that seems like justice hasn't been done, that the person who actually made the shot or took the shot or accidentally killed somebody isn't being held accountable. How would you respond to that idea?
That's the law, because if you weren't there sticking up the bank, I wouldn't have to shoot my gun. So it's you doing what you came there to do. Your illegal involvement in robbing that bank forced me into that situation. If you're not there sticking up the bank, I'm not there firing my gun. So that's on you.
But Martinez says Rekia wasn't robbing any banks. She wasn't breaking any laws. She was, he says, simply walking down the sidewalk.
This dude was off duty, supposed to be in his career, minding his own business or going off somewhere else. An off-duty officer, walking around with guns and mags. Wasn't on duty. You coming up through an alley at night, talking trash. Like, it's a problem. It's a problem. She can't rest in peace, because you still walking around. So, how can she rest in peace? It's impossible. You know, I had an officer doing a protest. Why are you still fighting? And I said, wouldn't you? If somebody came and took away your sister, your wife, or your son or daughter, would you just stop fighting? Would you stop talking? Would you turn away from the world?